SABC 3, the stage is yours.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabani. We are live at the SABC studios here in Auckland Park, here in Johannesburg. Tonight, we dip our flags with sorrow and reflection as we pay tribute to Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela.
Ndiunobandla nomzamo Winnie Mandela. As Shakespeare would write in Romeo and Juliet, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
There's been so much outpouring of emotion since her passing on Easter Monday. One of the painful episodes has been the negative narrative from those who, who sought to poke holes, in a sense, in a story of fierceful fight for freedom on behalf of the poor and oppressed. Something, to be expected in a free society for which she was incarcerated, for which she fought so hard. On the other hand, the question is, what lessons must we take from her life? It has certainly gotten the country talking. Her life was colorful. It was certainly not free from controversy. Like all of us, she was only human, albeit an extraordinary human being whose life is an illustration of how to free a nation and how to free women in our patriarchal society. My guest tonight is Imbokodo in her own right, former chairperson of the ANC and current Speaker of the National Assembly, Mebaleka Mbede, who will help me to understand the complex person Mama Winnie was. Let's go talk frankly to her now. Welcome to Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely. A very somber week that has gone past. What is your own reflections about how you would want, Mama Winnie to be remembered?
I think Mama Winnie's life speaks of a fearless person, a person who does not flinch, who speaks it as she sees it. In my view, this is the greatest gift she had, because she would not try to hide what she feels, what she thinks. Sometimes inconveniently so, because, sometimes you would be dealing with situations where you thought, hey, Mama, and she would just simply put it the way she feels it. And I think it's a good thing. It's a strength that she had, and in fact, we should learn from her that being honest is the best way to be as a human being, because then people don't doubt where you stand on a matter. And that was how she was. She was a person who took a position. She did not pretend that she thought something which she didn't feel. She would actually say what she thought.
In terms of her impact as a leader in our liberation struggle, what, in your view, would you describe as her key legacy? One or two big, legacy issues that you would say, this is what she has left behind for us?
Here is a woman who meets this great man and gets married to him. And he is immediately wrenched away from her. For years, she's left alone with her 2 children. She is a fearless defender of her right to be as a person, as a mother who has children that she brings up single-handedly. Thirdly, she does not flinch from the struggle for liberation. She continues, like any of us, to be in the situations that were, in fact, the situations of the times. She launches herself into those, and she speaks very highly in defense of the people, her people. And she does not try to pretend that, well, while my husband is gone, I have to be more focused on the children. No, she's a warrior. She's a freedom fighter. So she does not pull away from that aspect of her life. But also, we continue to learn in the example of her life that she cared for communities. She was a community worker. She was actually a trained social worker. And she continues in that role. You can see even how she chooses to intervene in the struggle. It's more those situations that she is preoccupied with that are affecting poor people in poor communities. So this is the greatest thing about Nomzamo, her ability to continue to just throw her energy everywhere.
And do you think that partly that's what may have made the ANC leadership slightly uncomfortable, because she herself confessed that, look, she was not really into politics, or she didn't even have a big discussion with Nelson Mandela about the ANC and so on. And so, in a sense, her energy thrust her into the limelight when she was, in fact, not an elected leader at the time. Do you think that somewhat that made the ANC leadership a little bit uncomfortable?
I don't think the discomfort would have been anything about her choice of how she intervened in the struggle. It is simply also because I remember the first time I was in a situation where we were talking, we were reflecting on what was going on around Mamuini. It was when we were still in Lusaka. So the concerns were more about her safety, because it had become very clear that the enemy had also started to come closer around her and those that were working around her. And in fact, I think the rest is history, because we know that indeed the people who worked with her, at some point, there were signs that in fact the enemy had infiltrated
those people.
Yes. So those initial discussions were about her safety, the safety of the work that was being done, and the fact that, you know, because she's this person who is unflinching, she just keeps going and does not feel that she must necessarily, I mean, like when she comes back from Brantford, she comes out of the car, and here at the police, she immediately launches into them with her own hands.
I want to talk after the break about gender politics and what role she played in elevating those into the national discourse. Well, frankly speaking, we're talking to Madam Speaker of the National Assembly tonight, paying tribute to Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Let's take a break.
Okay, Coca-Cola Original, Light, Zero, and Life bottles. All sizes and badges. You've been chosen for a very special time in people's lives, the FIFA World Cup.
You may not see happy families around the table or couples in love. You'll see people in love with their colors.
Many of you are going to be desired, kissed, maybe spoiled, thrown to the floor, or crushed.
But that passion is what shows us that we're alive.
It doesn't matter if you're at a stadium or at a kiosk in the middle of nowhere.
You can sweeten the bitter taste of a defeat.
You can enhance the taste of a victory.
Show the world what you have inside of you. Good luck.
This April, we have some fabulously good movies you won't want to miss.
Oh, come on in the house. What, are you gonna shoot me right here on your porch in broad daylight? Are you out of your mind?
Oh, that's good.
Oh, yes.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me on Khopotse JJ Tabane. You can follow the show on hashtag Frankly Speaking. You can tweet us at JJ Tabane at SABC News Online. We're talking to the Madam Speaker today about Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. You know, the whole issue of raising the debate on gender issues was one of her passions. What are your own recollections about those conversations, and what do you think her role was in elevating, you know, the whole issue of women empowerment really to become a mainstream discourse, both within the ANC and in the country?
I think when we talk about Mama Winnie, we must remember the context, the times in which she was active, in which she actually took up leadership of the ANC Women's League. It's a time when these senior leaders are back, they are out of prison, and in fact, their leadership is a huge thing in our midst. And in fact, they are leading all of us, including the leagues. Now, on the one side, the Women's League has already started taking up issues with the senior leadership of its own standing as a Women's League, even just before Comrade Winnie became president. So when she takes up the presidency of the Women's League, she is the wife of one of these leaders. And this becomes a bit of a challenge, an interesting
dynamic, so to speak,
dynamic
yes,
within the whole environment of that time. So, but there was Winnie. Again, she is fearless, she is playing her role, and she is self-confident, and she is exemplary in how she leads the league to take its own place, for women to learn to know that they have the freedom, they have the right. And I think it stood her in good stead that she was a princess, as she reminded us in one of the interviews, that she was born a princess and had been brought up not to cow, not to bow, not to be fearful of male domination. In fact, not to even expect to cooperate with any such phenomenon.
And one of the big things that were actually a very huge intervention was this whole issue of 50-50 gender representation that during her tenure was fought for, and in fact got the whole ANC to adopt it.
Yes, in fact, she took forward, because the earlier debates of the Women's League started with 30%. If you remember in Durban, at the Durban conference, we were talking 30%, and she took that debate beyond with the Women's League to 50%.
But do you share a sentiment that since those days that sound glorious as you describe them, right, there's been almost like a downward spiral or a lull in as far as taking up those gender issues are concerned, starting within the movement and then in broader governance? And I'll tell you why, because if you look at, if you fast forward to just the last general election, you had a situation where you didn't even have a single woman premier, right? You said this decision that sounds fine, 100%, I mean 50-50, but just recently in 2014, you have not single women premier. You now have 2 women premiers, but it only happened because now the 2 men who were occupying that were promoted. Then you were just from a Nasrec where you are left with 1 person in the top 6. Please explain to me how you feel in terms of whether we're able to fill those shoes and carry the gender issues with the same passion that she did.
I think the ANC must take up those debates. Frankly, as we are speaking frankly here,
yes.
And men and women in the ANC must ask themselves what happened, and we must all take responsibility
to fix it.
Because also, it's not only women who must correct that situation, who must answer, who must figure out what is wrong. Why is it that, in fact, in all provinces, it's men who are chairpersons. And therefore, when it comes to premiership, it is men that end up becoming the premiers. So it's a good thing that there are 2 women who are now premiers, but in fact, in the ANC structures, we must confront that question.
But it talks about, and I'm really glad that you're talking about confronting this, because we'll be having a different conversation if we all thought it's all fine, because it's actually not. And the issue of gender consciousness is what is now worrying people within the ANC and society. And here, if you look at just recent examples, an MP, a male MP, stands up to try and beat up a woman MP from the same caucus. I would have understood maybe if they want to beat up an opposition. They want to beat up their colleague. Right? I'm not aware that that person has been disciplined, or I know that they're still an MP. You got a Manana who's been convicted of beating up a woman. Right? It was too quick that now he's rehabilitated and he's already sitting there as an MP. The Women's League did not even argue that let's have a criteria that says before you are elected into position, at least don't be in such a messy controversy related to gender issues. Do you think there's something to be said there about the extent of gender consciousness in our movement right now?
You know what? I don't think you should leave it for the Women's League to deal with situations like that. I am saying those are political challenges that are facing all of us. Because we have a policy that actually says we are now an organization that is gender sensitive.
And gender conscious.
We are gender conscious. We know that there are certain don'ts. There are things we don't do. There are things we don't tolerate. Actually, we don't even tolerate violence between 2 cadres, whether they are both male or male.
But in these 2
female.
cases, you seem to have tolerated too much, because...
No, actually, we didn't tolerate.
Tell me more. What did you do with Manana and this other MP?
Well, Manana has been taken through a process.
At Parliament?
That MP, no, in the executive, which is where he was when these things were happening.
Okay.
Secondly, that MP you are talking about, in fact, has not come back.
Well, it's been fired?
Has not come back. There's been a political process that has dealt with her situation, because I remember coming across him somewhere and indicating that we were owing each other something. I've never seen him. I looked for him and I was told that he's probably not coming back. I said, okay, that might be
But in his own volition, so to speak. So are you saying that that speaks to the fact that he knows he's done something wrong?
He knows
he
definitely knows he has done something wrong. But I'm also wanting to say, JJ, the truth of the matter is over the years, there is an increase in the consciousness of some male comrades. Because there have been situations where we are sitting in a meeting and it's a male comrade who raises these issues we are raising. And I think that where there's something good that has happened, we've got to recognize it. And I must say that there has been consciousness.
A change, a bit of a change.
And people just consciously raising these things and saying, can you believe that we men have not made sure that back in the provinces there's at least there are women leaders, and we give a space for women to come in and also do things.
But if you look at Nasrec, I mean, you lament that even at the end of Nasrec to say, gosh, after 104 years, we're still here. 106 years, we're failing to just get our act together, to just say, gosh, you know, can you just have a first women president of the ANC?
I think that while we've made progress, we also take some 1.5 steps backwards. Why? Because the culture of the male domination continues to be stronger. It's obvious. And sometimes, even with women themselves, allowing it, if not encouraging it. Because sometimes it's also our difficulty as women to come to terms with the fact that we have a right.
I want to take that up a little more, especially on the issue of the coordination of trying to get a woman president elected, but we'll see how that links to Mama Winnie and what she would have wanted. Let's take a break now. After the break, we talk some more to the Speaker of Parliament as we pay tribute to Mama Winnie Mandela.
Today, my husband said he was in pain. He couldn't bend, twist, or lift. But he discovered Voltaren Emulgel. Unlike heat rugs, Voltaren Emulgel contains an anti-inflammatory medicine which penetrates the skin. It relieves pain, reduces inflammation, and speeds healing. Ready for round 2? Voltaren, now available at your nearest store.
Every day, it's getting closer, going faster than
oh my God!
A love like should come my way. Hey,
can we all do this together?
We are one, all of us, and this is how it is in heaven.
And may all of your ups and downs come only in the bedroom.
Rachel getting married, Friday at 9:30 on 3.
Grief. Can't really see myself carrying on with that spirit. It's your fault.
You don't know what...
You beat him! You beat him and he couldn't take it. Why do you stay with him? I'm waiting for my son to come home.
Your son is not coming home.
This isn't paradise. Leave this place before your spirit dies.
This is my home.
I know, Dana.
Confrontations and Sorrow. Tula's Vine, Thursday at 7:30 on 3.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. We're paying tribute to Mama Winnie Mandela tonight with the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mebaleka Mbete. And a lot of you sending your Facebook messages of condolences continuously. Khomozo on Facebook says you ran your race and finished the course. You were not perfect, but fought for our freedom in the only way you could. We're grateful for your contribution to the new South Africa. Tshwarelo also says, Mama Winnie, in you we had a pillar of strength and a strong mother of the nation. Bongani also saying, rest in pioneering to not only the mother of our nation, but to a brilliant activist, revolutionary, and humanitarian. And then Joseph Koyana says, you showed that Mosadi Utshwara Thipa ka fa bogaleng. You fought for South Africa through great leadership. And that's what I want to talk about, to say, did our women leaders, right? And I hear what you are saying about men also being part of it, and it's true. But women leaders really hold the knife on its sharpest side on this thing of trying to get a woman president elected. And I want you to reflect frankly about what you feel about it. You are the candidate. We had Messi Sulu. We had Menkosazana Dlamini Zuma, right? And that showed as if the women of the ANC were not united about, okay, let's just go for this candidate so that at least that is a success. What's your reflections about that, and what the background that Mama, the foundation that she put, that could have been used to achieve that kind of goal?
It so happens that I was in touch with Mama because in the last few years of her life, in the last 10 years in particular, we had reason to come closer within a context of the family. My brother married into a family where our sister-in-law was brought up by Zenani. So we came across one another in that context and talked about this subject. That's number one. Number two, it's not easy because politics is not easy. It's complex. And while we are talking gender politics, there's the broader politics within which even that gender politics is happening. And therefore, you find that things get much more complicated in a manner that is not talked about in the open. It's much more difficult than is easy to talk about. So I think I want to leave it there to say you are correct that a better situation would have been if the women had come together and therefore maintained a stronger possibility to create a situation where, in fact, maybe now we would be having a woman president.
But how do you pick up this spear then? Because clearly there are gaps. I mean, one of the things that really puzzled me was the Women's League at the policy conference, you know, saying men must be part of their delegation because women are so emotional. I mean, some of these things, I could mention many examples, frighten us about, are we going to really be able to go back to that standard of pushing these gender issues like Mama Winnie did? How do you pick up her spear?
But are you sure that that's what the Women's League said? Or is it just a rumor? I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't hear that.
Correct me, because it seems like everybody was puzzled. Why are we having men as part of a delegation of the Women's League?
I heard about 5 or 6 men who were there in the ticket of the Women's League. And anyway, let's talk about that when we have more facts about it. But the fact that it's a great pity that we missed out on an opportunity because of the broader politics of the organization. And therefore, the issues of the interests of women as a collective got subsumed and therefore sacrificed in that context.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time completely. What's your last message to South Africa on this week?
You know, the last message I have is to say, South Africa, let's learn to have a sense of occasion. To know on this occasion, these are not the things to be said, to be raised. We are mourning the death of one of us. And what we must do is to pay tribute to them, rather than to be digging every debt we can find about them. It's not correct. It's not done.
But thank you so much for agreeing to come and help us pay tribute here at the SABC. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, DJ.
That was Frankly Speaking, coming to you live from the SABC in Auckland Park. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.